what is happening with the data and why we don't really have reliable data to work with. At least that's my impression. I want to talk to someone who's far smarter than me. She is Dr. Charmaine Yoest, and she is the VP at the Heritage Foundation on the Institute for Family, Community, and Opportunity. She's also been named to the Coronavirus Recovery Commission, where she's doing a lot of work on how the nation goes forward from here. She's also my former boss. Dr. Yoest, welcome back. Good to have you.
Hi, Kevin. Good to see you. Sort of.
You are smarter than, well, who sees who anyway these days. You are immensely smarter than me when it comes to statistics. But Dr. Yoest, I have to say, I have been poring over the Johns Hopkins dashboard. I've been poring over the numbers that the CDC have been publishing. And then I found this back page of theirs that the front page, they have the Johns Hopkins number, and it's this big, scary number. It's, 75,000, 80,000, 90,000 that are going to be, dead within a short period of time. And then you go to the back page, and they've got a much lower number, and that one's actually based on the number of death certificates that are coming in and things that have been vetted a little more tightly. And when people started asking about this number last weekend, there was a lot of pushback from a group on Twitter called Team Lag Time, and they said, well, it's a lagging indicator, and it's going to catch up, and you'll see that it all fits, it all gets square. Charmaine, I've been watching it every day this week. The gap is getting wider between the two, and now we're into the 2 weeks recovery of the last part of April that should be the flattening of the curve portion of the stats. So how are we supposed to make sense of the data that we're being given and being told in very scary terms that this thing is going to be with us forever, and we just kind of have to deal with it?
Man, you know what? The reason I love coming to talk to you is that you start out with, talking about me being smart. Thank you for that very much. But then
no pressure, Dr. Yoest.
Yeah, seriously. And now you got me going back to, my stats class in grad school. But, the reason I like to talk to you and people like to listen is because you are on top of this kind of stuff. And I'm actually going to look into more of this since you're raising it. Let me flag for you a slightly different take on this, which is that I think the gross numbers are obviously important, and we've got to do a better job of tracking that. And there's a lot of different factors that come into it that you've just been mentioning. But one of the things we've been drilling down into at the Heritage Foundation is location of the numbers. And we just released a chart yesterday that people can find on dailysignal.com or heritage.org that looks at where the deaths are happening. And what is absolutely stunning to me, Kevin, is that 52% of American counties have had zero COVID-19 deaths. Then you add in another 14% that have only had one, another 14 that have only had 2 to 5. This is why the American people are so completely befuddled by this numbers game that's going on, and why what you're saying about how they're tracking things at a national level is really important, because it's not reflecting when they just give you this gross number that looks at the entire country, it's not reflecting people's felt experience on the ground and what they're living through in their own communities.
Right.
We've got to be looking at not just the gross numbers, but the discrete numbers. What's happening in your community? What's happening in your zip code? That's what's relevant to your life experience and the decision that you've got to make about whether you go back to work or not.
Well, let me throw another curveball at you, Dr. Charmaine Yoest of the Heritage Foundation. We have in this same CDC provisional report, which they admit on that page that it's a lagging indicator. So again, I'm building in the 7 to 14 days that they say to build. But when you look at it, the pneumonia, strict pneumonia, not pneumonia commingled with COVID or flu, but just pneumonia deaths on the same lagging indicating chart are 3 times the number of COVID deaths since the first of the year, day to date. Another thing that's quite interesting is that they have another category where they say expected, death expected of the population, and they're basing that expectation on a means average from 2017 through 2019, year to date, same set of time, circumstances, all pre-COVID, obviously. it would blow most people's minds to understand that we are running nearly 60,000 fewer people having died in 2020 year to date than those 3 years averaged together. It would blow most people's minds that pneumonia is killing 4 times the number of people of COVID-19, and we're not doing anything related to pneumonia. And it's also those discrepancies, Charmaine, that are making people go, well, wait a second. What do we know? Now that the antibody testing is coming in, showing that people have had it for much longer than we think it started, and have done pretty well, there's a lot of concern that this economic response has been far too punitive for the legitimate threat that the virus posed.
Well, let me throw another interesting thing at you. I always, when I was in grad school, I learned about something called path dependence, where you make one decision and it takes you down a path, and you keep going down that particular path.
Charmaine, hold that thought. I never do this, but it's live radio. It's my show. I can do whatever I want. Sort of. But stay with us, because I want to follow up on what you're trying to tell us. The numbers, friends, that's what this is about. It's about the numbers. Are they reliable? Do they mean anything? Can we count on them? How do we know if we're being told the truth or not? And where does it all leave us? Charmaine Yoest is my guest, VP of the Heritage Foundation, and on the Coronavirus Commission that is helping us to look at life after the virus. Coming up a little bit later, personal protection in an era of no guns. Stay here.
Balance of nature's fruits and veggies in a cow.